All right, let's dive into something that so many of us in tech and design deal with every day, models. But we're going to challenge what that word even means. We're going to reframe it from just being a static picture on a wall to something way more alive, way more powerful, a conversation.
You've probably heard this quote before. It's a classic from the statistician George Box. All models are wrong, but some are useful. And you know what? This is the key to everything. The whole point of a model isn't to create this perfect one-to-one map of reality. That's impossible. The point is to create something useful, something that helps us think and make better decisions together. It's all about utility, not perfection.
So that kind of begs the question, right? If we know deep down that every model is flawed, why do we burn so much time and energy trying to create the perfect one? That one single diagram that's supposed to explain everything to everyone. It's a huge trap, and in this explainer, we're going to figure out exactly why we fall into it, and more importantly, how we can climb out.
Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it. Let's talk about the problem with pictures. This is really where the whole traditional approach to modeling just completely misses the mark.
I want you to picture this, because I bet it sounds familiar. A new systems architect gets hired, and day one, leadership says, we need you to create a North Star model for us. The idea is that this one perfect diagram will get everyone on the same page, rowing in the same direction. And on the surface, that sounds great, right? A single vision. What could go wrong? Well, this is exactly where that whole North Star idea crashes and burns. It's usually for two big reasons. First, you're trying to fix people problems with a tech drawing. A diagram can't solve a lack of trust between teams or deep-seated political battles. And second, it's a top-down mandate. You can't just drop a complex vision from on high and expect everyone to just get it and buy in. It just doesn't work that way. And that brings us to the real heart of the matter. We need a huge shift in our thinking. It's time to stop seeing models as these finished, static things and start seeing them for what they really are, living, breathing conversations.
This quote just nails it perfectly. A model doesn't unify, modeling does. See, the final picture isn't the magic. The magic happens in the process, the act of getting in a room together, arguing, questioning, whiteboarding. That's what actually unifies a team. That shared struggle and discovery is what builds real alignment.
So we need a whole new definition. Modeling isn't just drawing boxes and arrows. It's the process of figuring out a system by asking really good questions. Questions that get a whole group of people to think through the problem together. The goal isn't the artifact. The goal is the shared insight we create along the way.
When you start thinking this way, a few things become super clear. The model is the conversation. It's a living thing, not a dead snapshot. And it's all about framing better questions, not pretending there's one single right answer. And, this is so important, no single model ever tells the whole story. The real power comes when we see how different models, different views connect. That's where we find those leverage points where one small change can have a massive impact.
Okay, I know this can all sound a little bit abstract, so let's bring it right back down to earth and look at how this kind of conversational thinking already works in the real world. Just take a look at these two columns. On the left, you've got Diana, a systems architect. On the right, Dawn, an interface designer. Look how eerily similar their thought processes are. They both start with understanding the context, they both seek out different points of view, they collaborate, get feedback, they're using slightly different words, but the core process, it's identical. It's all about collaborative inquiry.
And this classic quote from Steve Jobs just ties it all together beautifully. Design isn't about how pretty it is, and architecture isn't about how neat the diagrams are. At their core, both are about one thing, understanding how a system works. And you simply cannot understand how a complex system works without having deep, messy, collaborative conversations about it.
So we've seen how it should work, but what happens when these crucial conversations just don't happen? Let's dive into a little cautionary tale, a fictional company we'll call Mago.
Mago's story is a classic one. Back in the day, they were a print giant with this amazing, well-oiled publishing system. But when the world went digital, they didn't change how they thought. They just started bolting new things on, piece by piece, with no real plan. And that brings them to today. A total chaotic mess of outdated software, teams that don't talk to each other, and nobody agreeing on what's important. Their future is just this constant, painful struggle.
So here's the kicker. What is Mago's actual problem? Well, if you ask 5 different people, you get 5 completely different answers. The engineers will tell you the software is obsolete. Product will say they need more control. The executives are shouting digital first or cloud.
Everyone is running around trying to solve their own little piece of the problem, and the result is nothing. Total gridlock.
And this quote just cuts right to the heart of it. This is why Magos is failing. They skipped the most important conversation of all, agreeing on what the problem actually is. They jumped straight to fighting over solutions for problems that no one had even agreed on in the first place.
All right, so how do we avoid becoming the next Mongo? How do you actually kickstart these conversations? Let's get really practical here and look at some tools you can use tomorrow. And the good news is you can start small. You can use the stuff you already create every day. You just have to change your perspective. A wireframe isn't just a spec, it's a conversation starter about how people interact with the system. A requirements document isn't a to-do list, it's a model for understanding the ripple effects of a change. When you reframe these things, they go from being static instructions to powerful tools for thinking together. And if you're not even sure where to begin, this framework is a fantastic starting point. It's just 7 simple questions. But look at them. They go way beyond just the tech. They force you to talk about how information moves, how decisions get made, how teams are even structured. Just the act of answering these questions together is modeling as a conversation. Okay, as we start to wrap up here, I want to connect all these dots to one final, really big idea about what it is we're all actually building.
This quote from Frank Herbert is, wow, it's a bit of a gut punch, but it's so true. It's a reminder that every system we design, whether it's code or a company org chart, it gets hardwired with our own hidden beliefs and assumptions. And if we don't have these open, conscious conversations, all we do is bake in the old ways of thinking and make it that much harder to ever change. So, at the end of the day, here it is. The big shift is moving from being the artist who creates the perfect picture to being the facilitator who guides the messy, dynamic conversation. Because the diagram on the wall isn't the real system. The most important, most valuable system we can possibly build is our team's ability to think, learn, and solve hard problems together.
And that leaves us with one final thought, a question for you to take back to your own team, to your own work. The systems you build are a perfect mirror reflecting the conversations you're having, and, maybe more importantly, the ones you aren't. So, are you having the right ones?